So today's topic has to do with where we all start on the spiritual path. I figured since this is our beginning, we might as well start at the beginning. And the beginning of spiritual growth starts by being a positive force within the world, deciding to be a positive force within the world, to stop making a mess of the world and to stop making a mess of yourself. Where that begins is adopting a presence and a state of being that is harmless. Harmless to yourself, harmless to those around you, harmless to the environment. And harmlessness that we're talking about has to do with being calm and peaceful inside, so that you are not inclined by either compulsion or your past habits to act out in a way that injures another being. And what I wanted to start with was a story from Autobiography of a Yogi. And it has to do with Yogananda's experience with a mosquito. So some of you might remember this, and I'm just going to read from the book here. My early months with Sri Yukteswar culminated in a useful lesson, how to outwit a mosquito. At home, my family always used protective curtains at night, and I was dismayed to discover that in the Serampore hermitage, this prudent custom was not honored in the breach. Yet the insects were in full residence. I was bitten from head to foot, and my guru took pity on me. Buy yourself a curtain, and also one for me, he laughed, and added, if you buy only one for yourself, all the mosquitoes will concentrate on me. I was more than thankful to comply. On every night that I spent in Serampore, my guru would ask me to arrange the bedtime curtains. So one night, when a cloud of mosquitoes surrounded us, Master failed to issue his usual instructions. I listened nervously, with the anticipatory hum of the insects. Getting into bed, I threw a propitiatory prayer in the general direction. A half hour later, I coughed pretentiously to attract my guru's attention. I thought I would go mad with the bites, and especially the singing drone as the mosquitoes celebrated the bloodthirsty rites. No responsive stir from my master. I approached him cautiously, and he was not breathing. This was my first close observation of him in the yogic trance, and it filled me with fright. His heart must have failed. I placed a mirror under his nose, and no breath vapor appeared. For minutes, I closed his mouth and nostrils with my fingers. In a daze, I turned toward the door to summon help. So, a budding experimentalist, my poor nose. My master's voice was shaky with laughter. Why don't you go to bed? Is the whole world going to change for you? Change yourself and be rid of the mosquito consciousness. Meekly I returned to bed, and no insect ventured near. Now, this moves on. The instructive mosquitoes served for another early lesson at the ashram. It was the gentle hour of dusk, and my guru was matchlessly interpreting the ancient texts. At his feet I was in perfect peace. A rude mosquito entered the idol and competed for my attention. As it dug a poisonous hypodermic needle into my thigh, I automatically raised my avenging hand. Reprieve from impending execution. An opportune memory had come to me of Patanjali's aphorism of harmlessness. And Sri Yukteswar said, why don't you finish the job? Master, do you advocate taking life? No, but in your mind you had already struck the death blow. Yogananda, I don't understand. By harmlessness, Patanjali meant removal of the desire to kill. Sri Yukteswar had found my mental processes an open book. This world is inconveniently arranged for a literal practice of ahimsa, or harmlessness. So the world is not conveniently arranged to practice harmlessness naturally. Man may be compelled to exterminate harmful creatures. He is not under a similar compulsion to feel anger or animosity. Man may be compelled to exterminate harmful creatures, but he is not under a similar compulsion to feel anger or animosity. All forms of life, have an equal right to the air of this free world. The saint who uncovers the secret of creation will be in harmony with nature's countless bewildering expressions. All men may understand this truth by overcoming the passion of destruction. So all men and women may understand this truth by overcoming the passion for destruction. Now the key in all this is the passion for destruction. That's what we're talking about here. Because you can make yourself crazy thinking about all the different ways that you're harming the environment or you're harming the earth, It is the force, the compulsion, the desire which causes people to experience misfortune through being harmful. Basically, when you begin your spiritual path, the first thing to do is to start bringing up the idea of not injuring another being and not injuring yourself. And you don't want to be fanatical about this either. And it reminds me of a time when I first got interested in yoga, and I met with Roy Davis. And I was reading about harmlessness, and I became a vegetarian because of that. But then we planted a garden at my grandmother's house in West Virginia. And it was my first time planting a garden. I'd never really done anything like that before. And all of my vegetables were getting eaten by something. And I discovered that it was slugs. Okay, so all these slugs were eating my vegetables. And I didn't know what to do because I wanted to have a garden, but I didn't want to kill the slugs. And someone told me, well, if you put a pan of beer out, the slugs will go to it and they'll die and they won't eat your vegetables. So I stressed out about this for about 2 weeks. And finally I wrote a letter to Roy. And I said, Roy, they're eating my vegetables. I don't want to kill, the slugs. What should I do? And his response, in typical fashion, was, let them drink beer if they want to. Okay, so remember that. You want to be harmless, but you don't want to be fanatical about it. What I'd like to recommend is that taking this idea and finding out how you can apply it to your life for this following week. And again, going with the idea of not being fanatical about it, just pick one instance, one circumstance when you decide you're not going to be harmful towards another being. Whether it be changing your diet, whether it be being aware of your thoughts and your emotions, and when you think about certain people, you get a little, frustrated or angry with them and you think bad thoughts, whether you cut that out, just pick one thing and decide that for that week, you're going to be harmless in that way. Now, the reason we're only picking one thing is, again, so that you're not trying to think about all these thousands of different ways you can be harmless. And the reason we're picking one thing is so that you can just focus on that one thing. Because you don't want to take up a practice so that it stimulates your mind to worry and be frustrated with yourself. We're talking about the slugs. I spent 2 weeks worrying about slugs. That was a waste of energy. That was a waste of time. So just pick one thing, one instance, where you decide you're going to be harmless. And allow that to be your practice, along with your meditation, of course. But allow that to be your spiritual practice. Now, from Roy's book, The Science of Self-Realization, in Chapter 2, it says, in the presence of one whose thoughts and actions are harmless, all living things become peaceful and harmless. So again, in the presence of one whose thoughts and actions are harmless, all living things become peaceful and harmless. And Roy goes on to comment, when we are firmly established in harmlessness, our thoughts, feelings, and actions are entirely constructive. The peacefulness that we radiate into the mental atmosphere calms the minds and emotions of people in all forms of sentient life. Your choice to be peaceful and whole and serene doesn't just benefit you, it benefits everyone around you. It benefits everyone around you. Because imagine and remember a time when you've been around people who are internally agitated or who are internally not settled inside. Oftentimes, you will feel that as well. They don't have to even say anything. If you just get in their presence, you will feel that. But if you're around someone who is completely peaceful and calm and serene and settled, you will feel that same presence. This weekend, I went down to CSA and I spent some time with Roy. And every time I do that, just by sitting around and just chatting with him, there's a stillness that comes over me. And when I go to meditate, it's much easier to meditate. And so when you check in with yourself throughout the day, spend some time to feel how you feel inside. Are you calm? Are you peaceful? Or are you frustrated? Or are you agitated? Or are you having some sort of thoughts of negativity towards yourself? Because remember, it counts for you too, or towards others. And if you are, that's fine. Don't worry about it. Acknowledge it, let it go, and then bring up the state of peace inside. And it takes practice just like anything else. If you don't immediately feel peace inside, that's an indication that you have to train yourself to feel peace inside. And this peace, divine peace, is peace without condition, which means that you're not saying, okay, I'll be peaceful when this happens. I'll be peaceful when my spouse does this. I'll be peaceful when the world is perfect in this way. You're not doing it that way. You're just simply deciding that right now I'm going to feel peace. And that will act as the catalyst that will change your life. Because everything that you experience on this external level is coming as a reflection of your inner states of consciousness. All right? And it may be a good practice to just spend some time watching what your external environment is like. And as soon as you see what that external environment is like, immediately check in and think, what am I thinking right now? What am I feeling right now? And you will start to see a correlation between what you see and what you feel inside. Okay, what you see and what you feel inside. It's intimately connected. And then what you do is you start deciding to feel differently. And it doesn't mean that automatically the world itself is going to change. Because we all have habits and tendencies and predispositions. And some of those are deeper than others. And in different people, different ones are deeper than others. And so if you find this sense of difficulty, you might see that you have to spend more time focusing on being happy, being peaceful, being calm inside than, say, someone else. It's easier. But you have to do it. Because if you don't, that groove is still there. And the more you do it, that groove gets smaller and more shallow until it's not a problem anymore. Then when you change your internal states, when you change your internal consciousness, more often than not, almost immediately the external state changes. But it's just part of the process, it's just part of the practice. You have to figure out where you are, be realistic with yourself, how often have you been agitated and angry and difficult, and change that. And stick to it, change your mental states until it becomes as natural to you as the previous state was. It may take some time for you to hold that state and then for that to translate outward into your situation. But the more you do it, the more immediate it becomes. You can be in a situation where there's some negativity going on or, unpleasant circumstances. And you decide, well, I'm going to feel peaceful, but it doesn't immediately change, and then you get frustrated, because it didn't happen just like that. But if you hold it and you have that faith, you will see it change. And then as the months go by, as the years go by, you will be able to simply turn within, accept a state of peace and calm, and immediately the change will occur on the outside. Either the problem that was there will go away, the person that was there that go away, or you will remove yourself from the situation. It doesn't have to be magical. It can just be you simply moving yourself somewhere else, and that works. And then you will find that life starts flowing in a way where you don't even have to make that choice anymore, because the state is natural to you. And that's what we're shooting for. A state of such natural peace, such natural joy, such natural harmlessness, that you don't have to worry about the other guy. You don't have to worry about the other person. You don't have to worry about external things influencing you anymore, because you are your own master. You are your own compass. Okay. Now, meditation practice. The best way to get into this is to meditate, because through meditation you are training yourself to turn within and to feel your internal states and to let those internal states settle, and then to exist in superconsciousness or peace, exist in joy. And you do that 20 or 30 minutes once or twice a day, and that's the intensive practice. And then when you are going through your day, you remember what that was like, and you start injecting that into your experience. You're driving down the road, you remember, oh, I was pretty peaceful this morning when I'm meditating. I'm going to feel that now. You're at work. You remember that peacefulness. You bring it up. I'm going to feel that now. No matter what's going on, you use that experience in meditation, and you start permeating your day with that same experience. And eventually, when you meditate, what you experience then will be no different than what you experience when you're looking around, when you're living, when you're doing things. That's when life becomes whole. Well, it's a whole already, but that's when you know that life is whole. And that's when you know that you are making spiritual progress, when things reflect in that way. The external and the internal reflect in that way. Last time we spoke about harmlessness as being the first step in our spiritual awakening. And the next step is being in a state of truth. And in a state of truth means that you speak the truth, you know the truth, you do your best to express the truth within life. Relative truth has to do with your mind. It has to do with when you're interacting with people. You do your best to speak and to be authentic in all your interactions. And that is specific to the moment. Now this is relative truth, remember. And one of the quotes I really like from yogic literature is that the point of all this, the point of spiritual growth, is to learn to live a natural and spontaneous life contentedly. That being the culmination of right practice, right yoga practice. And so to live a natural and spontaneous life contentedly. When you live in this way, you don't necessarily have to think all the time about what you should be doing, because you are connected to the wholeness of life, you're connected to the infinite consciousness. Whatever needs done is done. Whatever needs accomplished is accomplished. Now, the absolute truth that we're here to realize is to know what we are at the core of our being, what we are beyond name and form, beyond time and space. That's the absolute truth. Roy Davis sends out Truth Journal from CSA in Lake Mont throughout the year, and he also sends out Radiance and Studies in Truth, which are for people who are members of CSA. And you know when you are in tune with the lineage of teachers, when you are in tune with your tradition, when the things that are coming up in your awareness are then confirmed to you by your teachers speaking about them or writing about them a little later on. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because the most recent, I believe it was the Radiance newsletter, Roy had a particular emphasis on it. And the week before this Radiance arrived, I was stopping and I was thinking to myself, well, you know, what is the thing that gets in the way of us experiencing peace and joy and happiness all the time? And it occurred to me that what this was trying to put our joy in the things of the external world. So being happy because of what's out there in the world and being fulfilled because of that. I realized that you can use the word addiction, but I want to use it loosely. Everyone has some sort of addiction. Most people's addiction is to trying to find happiness in the external world. And I thought, all right, so what is it that is so joyous, so pure, so peaceful, so fulfilling that it makes all the stuff in the external world look like nothing, look like just light and shadow? I thought if we could become fully established in that, we would no longer be trying to define our happiness through external conditions, and then we would just be happy, because we would know that we had this internal peace, this internal joy inside. And that's what's really there all the time. We're just usually too outwardly directed. So the reason I bring this up, when I picked up the Radiance newsletter, I was flipping through it, and on the second page it said one of the prime obstacles to self-realization or to remain firmly established in the self was, first of all, having a false sense of self, thinking you're the personality and you're the body, and then secondarily, having an addiction to external stimulus. Having an addiction to external things is making you happy. And it's so nice that when these things come up, and then I get these letters from Roy that are going out to everyone. I mean, everyone's getting these things, but just to see that by being in tune, you can get Radiance newsletter before it's actually delivered to your door, except in your consciousness. This is going along with the idea of truth, because you will not ever really truly find joy in external situations, whether it be people, whether it be places, whether it be things. It'll make you happy for a little while, but then it'll pass, and you'll need to find something else to fill that space. And so the absolute truth that we need to realize through our spiritual practice, through our life, is learning that we are already fulfilled on the inside. We are already completely and totally fulfilled on the inside, no matter what's going on the outside. Now, in yogic literature, there's an aphorism that says, part of the problem is looking for the eternal in that which is non-eternal, and looking to the non-eternal, trying to make that last forever. All right. Now, breaking that down. Everything that we see in the world, everything that we can experience, anything that rises is going to go away. Everything. Anything that comes into our life, that comes into our awareness, that comes into our perception, it's going to vanish eventually. All right. That's just the nature of this external existence. Now, there is that aspect to us which is the witnessing presence, which sees everything come and go. And it is that we need to give our full attention to, because when we can remain firmly established in that witnessing presence, then whatever rises and whatever falls doesn't matter. And then we start to realize that this external experience, it's always going to change. There's always going to be something that's going to make us happy, and there's always going to be something that's going to make us sad, and then the sadness is going to go away, and happiness is going to come back, and the happiness is going to go away, and sadness is going to come in. So you see, it's just a wheel. We just keep spinning on this wheel. Now, when we pull back and we become into this witnessing presence, that is the infinite consciousness, the thing that lasts forever, and that is your true eternal nature. Then you don't mind what happens in the external world, because you know it's not you. Then you know it's not you. Lahiri Mahasaya, in his commentary on the Gita, one of the things that he mentioned was part of spiritual practice is learning to accept fulfillment for no reason. And you've heard me talk about this before. One of the ways that you can do that is wherever you are, if you can just take a moment to say, no matter what's going on externally, I am completely and totally fulfilled. If you accept that state right now, that you are completely and totally fulfilled, it will stay with you no matter what's going on in the external world. And recently I was considering, I thought, well, I don't know why I was thinking this, but I was thinking about death, and that's a pretty heavy thing to think about. I was thinking, well, if I was going to die, what state would I want to be in when I passed? What state would I want to be in? And I realized, well, I would just want to be fulfilled and at peace. That's what I would want. Because then it's not such a problem. You're already fulfilled. You don't have a whole lot to worry about, right? You just slide right into the next state. And I realized that if I want that, I just need to claim it now. Because who knows when you're going to check out. I'm sure some people do. Yogis, they get a little bit of warning before it's going to happen. But if you're not there yet, if you just decide that you're going to be fulfilled right now, that makes all of life so much easier and smoother. And what scares a lot of people when this comes up is that they're going to stop doing, they're going to stop wanting to achieve, they're going to stop trying to act. Well, again, in the Gita, you can never go without action. There's never a moment in time when you're not doing something. Even when you're sleeping, your heart's beating, you're dreaming, whatever it might be. So imagine if you could just simply accept that state of fulfillment and then do whatever it is you need to be doing without worrying about the results of your actions. Because again, that also goes with the idea of yoga practice. To practice yoga fully and completely, to practice spiritual growth techniques in the way they're meant to be done without attachment to the results of the action. Which means you don't sit and meditate and say, well, I'm meditating so that I can be one with God. Because you're already one with God. And if you just accept that as true, then you're just meditating because it's what's appropriate to be done. And then you don't get frustrated about progress. Because you see, the mind wants to see progress. It wants to see changes. It wants to see, things happening, things going and going. But by doing that, you're going to set up an expectation, which is going to let you down. And then when you're let down, you're going to feel bad, right? So just imagine if you decided that you're going to meditate every day, you're going to read some inspirational literature every day, you're going to eat a healthy diet, you're going to do your best to maintain a happy, cheerful state of consciousness just because, for no reason. If you do it for no reason, then no reason can take you out of it, right? Think about it that way. All right, now, going back to the idea of truth. In The Science of Self-Realization, Roy's book that he wrote, A Guide to Spiritual Practice in the Kriya Tradition, on page 43, at the top, it's written, "One who is truthful experiences quick results of actions." And Roy goes on to comment, "Conforming our thoughts and actions to what we know to be true keeps our attention and our actions focused on useful goals and productive endeavors that are easily actualized. If we are not yet truth conscious, mental confusion, emotional conflict, and erratic behaviors may result. And in personal relationships, truthful individuals are reliable, and untruthful individuals are not trustworthy." Now, what we're doing here is moving into a state of truth consciousness, which means you do your best to be honest with yourself and to be honest with other people, as best as you can. When you know truth, you know what it feels like to be in truth. It's usually positive, it's uplifting, it's pretty smooth. When you are not in truth, when someone's telling a lie or you know something's just not right, how does it feel? Usually it feels kind of flat, it feels sort of like, that's not quite right, it just doesn't feel right inside. The more that you claim truth consciousness, you allow yourself to be established in truth, you set up a circuit, and you can think of it like an energetic circuit, but it's just like a pathway within you, that the more you speak truth, the more you tell truth, no matter how simple it is, the more you will know truth. By setting up that circuit, by telling the truth, committing to truth, then you will truly know what it means to be self-realized. You will know what it truly means to be awake in God, because you are allowing that truth to come through you. And when you're meditating, if you're a truthful person, if you're an honest person, you don't have to worry about lies that you might have told or things that you have done in the past, because from this point forward, you are established in truthfulness. Again, to be established in truthfulness doesn't mean that you have to run around exclaiming all the terrible things that you've done in the past because you want to purge yourself of it. All right? You can be the worst person in the world, and as long as you come to truth and decide that you're going to be dedicated to it, that's what's going to transform your life. And the point that matters most is the point you're in right now. From this point forward, deciding you're going to be truthful, you're going to be honest, and that's it. Forget about your past. Sri Yukteswar says that in Autobiography of a Yogi. Everyone has darkness within their past, and there's no reason to dwell on it, and there's no reason to go digging around in it. The point is that from this moment forward, you are going to remain established in truth. There's a catch to that. It's one thing to say, well, I'm going to forget about my past, and it's not going to bother me anymore. But the key to that is that you must really let go of that past and be truthful with yourself that you're not going to repeat the problems that you've had or the decisions that you've made that have not been correct within the past. If you decide, yes, I've done thus and so and it's no good, and you say, I'm not going to do it anymore, but in the back of your mind, you know you've still got some little inclinations that are probably going to make you do it again, just be honest with yourself and don't lie. Say, yeah, I'll probably do that again. All right. That's starting, even though it's not necessarily changing the behavior in the way that you want it to go in, it's starting you in that direction of truthfulness, you see, because you're not lying to yourself, nor are you lying to someone else. You know, if you steal things, right, and someone says, well, gee, are you trustworthy enough to leave you with all this money? And you say, well, probably not. Okay. At least you're being honest. Okay, but if you say yes, and then you go, thieving or whatever, that's different. Now, if you decide from this point forward, no, I'm no longer going to be a thief, I'm no longer going to do these things which are bad for me or other people or whatnot, if you decide from that point forward that truthfully you are not going to do that, then your past really doesn't matter. Because from this moment forward, you are established in that new state. So remember that. With truth, it doesn't mean you have to go blabbering about all the negative things that you've done in the past to get it out. It just means that if you decide you're going to be a different person in a different state, that right now you do that. And if you're not, then just admit that you're not going to change. Okay? And again, that's still setting up that wave of truth. And eventually, the more you tell the truth, the more you say, yes, I'm a thief, and whatnot, or to people who ask, the more you'll start to realize, well, it's not really useful to be that way anymore. And then you'll just naturally change because you're becoming established in this truth consciousness. All right. One last thing before we meditate from Autobiography of a Yogi. Now, in Autobiography of a Yogi, going back with Roy's book here, it reads, "Those who habitually speak the truth develop the power of materializing their words. What commands they utter from the heart come to pass. Because the worlds are built on truth, all scriptures extol it as a virtue by which man and woman may tune their lives with the infinite. Mahatma Gandhi often said, 'Truth is God.' Throughout the ages, the ideal of truth has permeated Indian society. And Marco Polo tells us that the Brahmins would not utter a lie for anything on earth. An English judge in India, William Sleeman, says in his journey through Ould in 1849 through 50, "I have had before me hundreds of cases in which man's property, liberty, or life depended on his telling a lie, and he refused to tell it." And back to this book, I'm not going to find it, I remember what it says, that these practices of harmlessness, of truthfulness, and the other things we're going to be going over in the next few weeks, that they are applicable irrespective of time or place. They are not based on circumstance. Truth is not based on circumstance. The more you accept truth, live in truth, be truthful with yourself and with others, no matter what, the more your life will reflect, you will know truth. And as it said in Autobiography of a Yogi, the words you utter, they will materialize experiences. When a yogi, when a saint or a sage says something, it's going to happen one way or another because they are established in truthfulness. That doesn't mean they're going to say it. Just because you want something to happen, it doesn't mean they're going to say it. But if they do say something, there is a very strong likelihood that that is going to materialize because they are established in truthfulness. Because they can't lie, right? And they are attuned to this infinite consciousness, which we all are, really, but they are so attuned to it that their state of being can tell if something is going to happen. Not by thinking about it, not by their own little personality, but just by being in that state of infinity. They can know if something is going to happen in the world. And that's why they can say it. It's not coming from their personality. It's not coming from them having special psychic powers or whatnot. It's just that they are so established with the truth of their being as being the infinite consciousness that they know when things are going to happen, when they are not going to happen. And you can know that too through meditation practice. The more you're established in it, the more you will know when something is right and when something is not right. And you will speak the truth, and you will not say anything if there's no need to say it. So today when we meditate, use whatever meditation technique you want to get yourself in a superconscious state. But as you meditate, have the sense that you are meditating in truth, that you are filled with truth, that you are one in truth, you are one in infinity, in the infinite consciousness, which is pure truth. And project that in the past, and project that into your future, so that every moment of your life is truth. Become so established in that you know what it feels like. You have a direct experience of it.